TV 10 Mobile today. The News 10 Dayside with Glenda Webb.
Good morning, I'm Renee Dow, sitting in for Glenda Webb this morning, who will be sitting in for Glenn Robinson tonight. At any rate, this is Friday, the 13th of July. Some of you may view this as a bad luck day, but it is the beginning of the weekend, and that's good. On our Newsline segment this morning, we'll be talking with one of Alabama's most prominent female figures. She's from right here in South Alabama, a little town called Loxley. She is State Supreme Court Justice Janie Shores. As always, we welcome your calls a little later, but first, the news. Convicted murderer David Leroy Washington was executed this morning in Florida's electric chair. The former choir boy admitted he killed 3 people in the Miami area over 12 days in 1976. He stabbed an elderly minister with a hunting knife, shot and stabbed a woman he robbed of $8, and tied a 20-year-old student to a bed and stabbed him 11 times. Washington is the 7th man to be put to death in Florida since capital punishment was reinstated in 1976. A Tennessee judge says the conviction of Joseph Paul Franklin serves notice that America will not tolerate crimes against humanity. Franklin, a Mobile native and self-avowed racist, was convicted yesterday of bombing a Jewish synagogue in 1977. The 33-year-old Franklin confessed the crime in a statement he made to the jury at the end of the trial. He was sentenced to 21 to 31 years in prison. He was already serving 4 consecutive life sentences for the killing of 2 black joggers in Salt Lake City in 1980. Mobile County Commissioners this morning are pleased with their new jail site, but they're not happy with the way Phoenix Properties went about acquiring the land. The mystery owner of that corporation was introduced to the media yesterday. Paul Kirkland, the chief clerk for Mobile County Probate Court, says he's the sole owner of Phoenix Properties. He made about $100,000 on the deal, but he refused to answer questions about how much money he put down on the options to buy the 32 parcels of land. Commission President Dan Wiley says there's nothing illegal about the deal, but he says he just doesn't like the way Kirkland handled it. Excuse me. The new jail should be completed by December. Reaction around the country is mixed this morning to the naming of New York Congresswoman Geraldine Ferraro as running mate to Democratic presidential nominee Walter Mondale. The choice is being applauded by some Alabama Democratic leaders and criticized by others. Alabama Senator Howell Heflin says the selection of a woman is premature and says perhaps the country isn't ready for it. Some Republicans say Mondale picked a woman just to please feminists. Republican Senator Ann Betzow had this reaction to the Mondale choice.
And as a woman, I'm glad that there's a woman on the ticket, but I am a little bit disappointed that he didn't pick a woman of a broader experience, you know, somebody like Elizabeth Dole, that is well versed in all segments of government, well known to all the American people.
The state Democratic Party chairman Jimmy Knight says Ferraro will add excitement to the campaign. The name Geraldine Ferraro is unfamiliar to many Americans. Peter Hackus has this profile of the 3-term Congresswoman.
I looked for the best vice president, and I found her in Jerry Ferraro.
The Ferraro face came into national prominence recently as she gently but firmly guided the often heated debates at the party's 1984 platform sessions toward compromise and a finished product. As a 3-term member of Congress representing New York City's blue-collar borough of Queens, Jerry Ferraro has taken some important stands. This 48-year-old Catholic mother of 3 has backed government-supported abortions for the poor, the Equal Rights Amendment, pay equity for women, and other liberal stands on Social Security, unemployment relief, Medicare, student loans, and nuclear arms reduction. Her dedicated hard work on legislation in the House of Representatives has impressed some Democratic Party VIPs, whose praise has brought her national attention through news items and meetings with party bigwigs.
The main concern that I have about Ronald Reagan is where he stands on foreign policy and war and peace. And I think that I, as a Democrat, have voted right and pushed for policies that make much more sense.
Congresswoman Ferraro, daughter of an Italian immigrant, attended law school at night, practiced law at home for 13 years, then served as county prosecuting attorney. She's dedicated to her community. Geraldine Ferraro, Democratic candidate for vice president. A 200-year tradition is broken. Peter Hackus, NBC News, Washington.
Governor Wallace leaves Montgomery this afternoon on a 16-day visit to Europe, where he hopes to convince international firms to invest in Alabama. After a brief stop in Allentown, Pennsylvania, the governor will fly to Munich, Germany. His trip will also carry him to Switzerland, Italy, France, and England. The Reagan administration isn't commenting on today's report in the Washington Post that secret talks are going on between the U.S. and Cuba. The report says the talks concern immigration issues. The U.S. wants to return 1,000 undesirable refugees who came to the country 4 years ago, and Cuba is reportedly trying to get U.S. visas for some 15,000 Cuban immigrants. During his presidency, Ronald Reagan has changed his position on some issues. In his comments this morning, Paul Harvey says that's a trait common to many past American presidents.
Do you realize that President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Ronald Reagan saw eye to eye on most things? At first. However, before the end of FDR's first term, he was off in an entirely different direction. Other presidents have similarly practiced something other than what they preached. President Harry Truman said that Korea was outside our area of interest, and later he intervened in Korea. He was for price controls, then he was against price controls. Eisenhower, he was a budget cutter who subsequently ballooned the budget. Now, of course, it can be argued that leaders must remain sufficiently flexible to respond to changing circumstances. But policy reversal arms one's political enemies. President Reagan promised that our Marines would remain in Lebanon to stay, and now they are gone. He about faced on China. If his political opponents are not using this inconsistency against him, it is because by every measure available, his public support was enhanced rather than diminished by these policy reversals. President Reagan, though pledged to veto any tax increase, will soon be signing a tax increase. It won't be called that. It'll be called tax reform. Good day.
A plane crash in Italy claimed 9 American lives. We'll have that story and more news when Dayside continues. 9 Americans are dead in a crash of a U.S. military transport plane in Italy. U.S. officials in Sicily say the plane burst into flames and crashed shortly after takeoff from a refueling stop in eastern Sicily yesterday. The plane was on a routine supply mission to Africa. Inflation at the wholesale level is holding steady for the 3rd straight month. The Labor Department reports its producer price index was unchanged in June. Food prices fell for the 3rd straight month, and energy prices were down slightly. However, the price drops were offset by a rise in products such as cotton and flour. A consumer group says 45 million Americans will pay more than $100 extra to heat their homes next year. That's the number of families that use natural gas. The report comes from the Citizens Labor Energy Coalition, which wants to keep federal price controls on natural gas from expiring in 1985. The report contradicts Reagan administration predictions of only slight increases when the controls are lifted. The cost of buying and operating a car becomes more of a burden each year, but there are some areas in which you can affect considerable savings, like auto insurance. As we see in this Buyer Beware report, the list is quite long.
There are at least 14 different ways in which you can reduce your auto insurance premiums. For instance, if you belong to a qualified medical program like Blue Cross, you can get a discount on your personal injury protection. Insurance agent Ernest Martino lists some others.
Comprehensive coverages, we recommend deductibles of at least $50 and also suggest that you consider higher as much as $200 if the premium savings is worthwhile in your particular territory where you live. Recommendations have been to all our customers that they carry at least $250 deductible on collision, and when the car reaches approximately 6 years old, they should consider dropping that coverage at that time.
If you're a member of a carpool, or if you have 2 or more cars in your family, there may be a discount. When you retire, you should ask if that can mean a savings for you. And that's the key. You must ask your agent.
We also recommend that you talk to your agent at least once a year to make sure you're properly rated. Check your classifications. Persons driving a car for pleasure use, driving 7,500 miles or less per year, will receive a discount in many of the insurance companies' rating plans.
If your child takes a driver education course, most companies will offer a discount. If you have a safe driving record, no accidents, it might save you money. Being a non-drinker, a good student, a student at college at least 150 miles from home, a farmer, and owning a car which is not high-powered or a sports car may well lead to lower premiums. You've got to shop around because companies differ in the discounts and packages they offer and are constantly changing. So contact your agent at least once each year to determine if any of these savings are for you. In other words, let the buyer beware.
When Dayside continues, we'll be talking with Alabama's first female Supreme Court Justice, and as always, we welcome your calls. Our number is 770-9225. We'll be right back. While the rest of the country is focusing on the accomplishments of Geraldine Ferraro this morning, we take time out to recognize one of the prominent females from our area. The fact is, there are many females who are making American history today. Some of them are listed in this month's issue of Ladies' Home Journal. The article is called 50 American Heroines. They come from every state in the Union and a variety of professions. The article includes the first woman ever to sit on Alabama's Supreme Court. She was elected in 1974 with the largest vote of any Supreme Court justice ever. Her name is Jamie Shores. She is from Loxley, Alabama in South Baldwin County, and she is here with us this morning. Thank you for joining us, Justice Shores. Tell us, what were your expectations as a young girl in growing up in South Alabama, and how did you get to where you are today?
Well, actually, I think if I had to single out one individual who had more influence on me than anyone else as a young girl, 16 years old, it was a Mobile lawyer, Vince Kilburn, who is no longer living.
Mm-hmm.
But he encouraged me to go to law school in 1954.
Mm-hmm. What, did you find any discouragements along the way?
Well, there clearly were very few women in law school at that time. In the 3 years I was there, I think there were a total of 3. Mm-hmm. Now the law school population is almost 50-50, mm-hmm. female and male.
Has the attitude seemed to change during the years that you practiced law and now are on the Supreme Court? Because, as I understand, when you were admitted to the Bar Association in Alabama had to change its bylaws?
Not the Alabama Bar, no. The Selma Bar Association,
okay.
where I practiced in 1959 and thereafter. Yes, they had to amend the bylaws to allow women. Mm-hmm. It was limited to white male lawyers at the time.
Do you think that you would do, a young woman would do better now in this
Oh,
area?
without a doubt. Yes, the resistance is far way diminished from what it was.
Did you want to go to Selma or to practice, or?
Yes, yes,
Mm-hmm.
yes. It was a choice that I made.
Okay, I had, in reading the article, it mentioned that you couldn't even get interviewed by
Oh,
the
that's
local
right.
firms.
That's right. And in defense of the firms, though, at that time, I must say that I think it was less discrimination against women. It was more concern that their clients would not accept women lawyers.
Mm-hmm. Tell me, what are your feelings about Walter Mondale's selection of Geraldine Ferraro as his running mate?
Well, I will confess that my primary interest was in the strongest possible Democratic ticket. Mm-hmm. And I must say, while I'm proud, of course, that a woman is recognized, I am afraid that it will not strengthen the ticket in the South. Mm-hmm. I hope I'm wrong, but that's my fear.
Why is that? Well, you might know.
I just think the South is a conservative part of the country, and I just think that a liberal Democrat, male or female from New York, simply won't strengthen the ticket here.
Do you think that Gary Hart would have been a better choice of Mondale's, or should he have selected someone from?
Well, I wish I knew more about how each of them fared in the primaries in the South of the world. I do not know. Mm-hmm. I thought a Southerner would be more likely to attract support for Mondale.
Some people say that the judiciary is getting too powerful, especially for federal judges. We've had a number of conflicts between certain areas of government and officials and the federal courts here in Mobile, which you may be familiar with. What are your feelings about that?
Well, let me confess that I'm not that familiar with local cases and controversies, but I do share some of the concern of America that maybe the federal judiciary has become, over these past few years, active in areas that traditionally the judiciary stayed out of. And let me say, by way of example, it's always been true in this country that, and historically it is so, that courts have no method by which to enforce their decrees. You know, they don't have armies and they can't raise money and that. So the traditional method of enforcing court decrees has been to hold the people who are charged with carrying them out in contempt. Now, that has seemed to have been abandoned as a method in many cases, and the court themselves have become involved in administering agencies of various kinds, mental health in this state, prisons, and so on, as opposed to holding those responsible in contempt of the orders, unless they do whatever the Constitution requires.
What do you think a solution might be to curtail some of this?
Well, I'm clearly not authorized or just don't know what with respect to if any substantive change should be made, but I think the traditional method of enforcing court orders worked. Now, it may be painful and it may be controversial to put people in jail whose responsibility it is to fund the prisons, but that's the way we used to do it.
And you think that would be better than putting them under, giving them fines?
Well, judges, I'm clearly not, I'm just not educated with respect to how to run prisons.
Okay. You were elected in 1974. Do you think that the judges should be elected or appointed?
Well, that controversy has raged since the country was founded, and I can give you arguments on both sides. The argument for appointment is that it gives judges the freedom to follow the law without public pressure. And of course, we want judges who will follow the law with regard to controversial cases and not follow public opinion. You take an oath of office to uphold the laws of this country, the laws of the Constitution of the United States and of this state. Now, I can argue, and I think demonstrate, that state judges do that, notwithstanding the fact that they have to stand for re-election.
Okay, we have a caller on the line, and if you hear me, go ahead with your question, please. Is the caller still on the line? I think they were hung up or disconnected. If the justices base their decisions on the Constitution, how do you explain what some consider a shift towards liberalism from the decisions coming from Supreme Court justices?
Oh, to the contrary, the so-called shift this term is said to be to the right, to the conservative position. The legal scholars are now discussing the term just ending. And in a number of instances, the present Supreme Court of the United States has sided with the government as opposed to the individual in the criminal area. Chipped away a little bit at the exclusionary rule, which has been the law for about 70 years, always controversial. Sided with the government in a number of instances. So I think all of the writers would say that it's a shift to the right as opposed to the left.
How do you reach the decisions that you make as a Supreme Court justice?
Well, I certainly strive to reach the decision based upon the applicable law. As you know, at the Supreme Court level, we don't hear witnesses and we don't decide facts. We simply review the circuit court judges. And so I have a record of the evidence. The jury or the judge has decided what the facts are with respect to disputes in the evidence and so on. So the only thing we do, and I hope I do it objectively, is apply the law to those facts.
Do you confer with the other judges?
Oh, yes, yes. We are a court of 9 people, and it takes 5 votes to constitute a majority.
How have you been received? Have your views been sharply different from the other justices, or do you run into problems, or?
No, you know, of course, 9 people from diverse backgrounds naturally see things from a different perspective. And the law isn't always just black and white. But I think I can safely say that all of us try very, very hard to not allow any of our personal experiences to have any part whatsoever in the decision-making process, to the extent that we can, of course.
Do you think that your being a woman on the Supreme Court has had an impact or been significant in any way?
Well, I think probably not insofar as the decisions themselves are concerned. I really don't think so. Probably it has had some impact with respect to the conduct of the conferences, perhaps.
Okay. We have a caller on the line, and if you hear, go ahead with your question, please.
I'd like to ask who makes a decision when they execute somebody, is it the judge or the jury?
Well, in the state of Alabama, the jury recommends the sentence, either death or life without parole, but it's the judge, the trial judge, who makes the final decision, and he can overrule the jury. That is to say, if they return a verdict recommending life without parole, the trial judge can impose the death penalty, and in fact has done so on more than one occasion in Alabama. And the Supreme Court of the United States has said this term that that's all right.
We have another caller on the line. If you hear, go ahead with your question, please. Are the courts concerned at all with the victims of crime?
Oh, yes. People generally in this country are concerned with the ever-rising crime rate. You're reading the news a moment ago. It struck me that you just can't have the news at any time without some newsworthy criminal activity to be reported. And it's a matter of concern to all people, I think. It's a shame. I was talking to someone yesterday. It's a shame to be frightened to be in your home. We used to never lock doors when I was growing up. You never locked your car. And now nobody would think of leaving your car unlocked anywhere, I suppose, in this country. And that's just too bad.
Do you think that they get enough attention in the judicial
No, I don't
system?
think they've gotten enough attention. I think it's absurd when you think about it, the numbers of times that people have to come to court to be witnesses to criminal acts, the trouble that they have to go to. I think we simply have to do something to address that problem. Now, it is quite true, of course, that all of the safeguards that are written into the Constitution are for the protection of innocent people. They aren't written in there to protect criminals. They're written in there to protect you and I in case we were falsely accused of crime.
Okay. Well, we thank you for joining us, Justice Shores, and
Thank
I've
you
enjoyed
very
talking
much.
with you this morning. Of course, when we come back, I'll have the weather forecast and job line listings. We have 2 listings this morning for job openings. The first is for a diesel mechanic. You must have experience and your own hand tools. There's also an opening for an accounting clerk with 3 years experience in posting accounts payable and receivable. You will also have to operate a small computer. If you're interested in these positions, call Jobline at 342-WORK. If you're planning to go out looking for a job today, take your umbrella because weather forecasters say it's going to rain. And right now, it is 84 degrees in Mobile. The relative humidity is 63%. The barometric pressure is steady, and the winds are coming in out of the west about 5 miles per hour. The skies are sunny. Our national map today shows showers and thunder showers from Texas eastward throughout the southern states. Some tropical showers over parts of Arizona mixed with hot temperatures are making it quite muggy in the southwest. Today's forecast calls for thunderstorms, a 70% chance for rain is likely today. The high should get up into the lower 90s. Tonight, we're expecting warm and humid temperatures to continue with a 40% chance for scattered thunder showers. The low will drop into the mid-70s. Tomorrow, there is a 50% chance for scattered thunder showers. The high will get up to near 90 degrees. Discovery space watchers will have to wait until August 24th to witness the Space Shuttle Discovery's maiden voyage. NASA officials have decided to combine major features of the twice-postponed first voyage with the craft's second mission. Officials are hoping that will put the shuttle program back on schedule by October 1st. That's all the time we have for the Friday edition of Dayside. As I mentioned earlier, Glenda Webb will be back. We'll be filling in for Glenn Robinson tonight at 6 and 10. I hope you will join her. And on Monday, a representative from the New Orleans World's Fair will be here to update us on the status of the fair. In the meantime, enjoy your weekend.